and welcome back to the Fast and the Curious with me, Betty Glover, in Manchester, which is 1 degrees. It's snowing and it is very bloody cold. And Christian Hugill to take you inside the world of Formula One this week, because Christian is in Las Vegas. Christian, what's it like?
Welcome to Las Vegas. Betty, you know when you watch the race and you see the Eiffel Tower? I mean, it's not the Eiffel Tower, spoiler alert, that's in Paris. The fake
Eiffel Tower.
The fake Eiffel Tower. You join me from there, because I didn't know until I was booked to go on this trip. That's a hotel, which is where I'm staying.
As if.
So welcome. Doesn't look very impressive, and I would show you my view out the room, but it could be anywhere in the world. It literally looks like I'm opposite a hotel, which I am. But yeah, so it doesn't, if you're watching on YouTube, it doesn't look exciting. It's a hotel room, but I am in that Eiffel Tower. I'm in Paris, everyone.
Well, before we get into what Las Vegas is like and everything, let me tell you what we're going to be talking about on this episode. So we're, of course, going to look ahead to the race, and we've got loads of questions that we've had sent in from loads of different fans about the Vegas Grand Prix. So we'll go through that. We've also got a driver chat with McLaren's 2025 Formula One Academy driver, Ella Lloyd. That's coming later in the show. But Christian, you're in Las Vegas. I know it's morning time, so you arrived there yesterday. What have you seen? What's it like? Have you seen anyone get married? What's happening?
So I flew on Monday at 4 p.m. I left Heathrow Airport, right? It's a 10.5-hour flight. Boy, does your bottom know about it after 10.5 hours in a plane seat. Betty.
Oh, I thought you meant that you had like tummy issues or something, like you had diarrhea.
No, all fine on that front.
It's like Christian.
I'm delighted to report. Fine there. It's 10.5 hours in a seat. So yeah, got here, and then I was sort of like ready to go to bed, obviously, because by that point it's goodness knows what time of the morning UK time. But I've never done the Vegas Grand Prix before, and the people who I'm with from F1 who have are like, no, you've got to stay up.
Oh, okay.
And I was having dinner I mentioned in Paris. Now, Paris as a hotel is also a casino.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. But for those who have never been to Vegas, they don't put windows in these hotels because they don't want you to know what time of day or night it is, because they just want you to keep having a good time. So there's no windows, and the ceiling and wall are all one, and it's blue. It's made to look like, for anyone who's been to Paris, there's a bit underneath the Eiffel Tower. It's made to look like that bit. And they pump in air conditioning. So I'm sat there, having not been to bed for, 24 hours more, having dinner in this room where it's blue sky. And if you squint, you're outside, but you're inside, with slot machines and those bright lighted machines everywhere as far as you can see. And I'm sat there having dinner being like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm just wandering down the strip where there's like... what are those dancers that have got like, almost like burlesque dancers, got like big bunny ears and like that sort of thing? What are they called?
I don't know.
No, it's not that, but that's what it looks like. They're walking up and down. There's someone playing different music, and it's just like when you've not been to sleep, and it's like...
Did you feel like you were in a bad dream where you were like hallucinating?
I did feel like I was in a hallucination dream, because basically, if you've ever been to Piccadilly Circus in London, go to New York Times Square, and it's like Piccadilly Circus on heat. Then go from Times Square to the Vegas Strip, and it's like a street of Times Square, and it's like the lights, the noise... And I've not been to bed, and it was like, okay, this is unbelievable. The key to jet lag is stay awake. And I've stayed awake, and now here I am on Vegas time.
I can never do that. I'm honestly the worst. I'm such a nightmare. If I'm tired, I need to go to sleep. So I just can't do it.
Yeah, it's hard.
So you're ready, you're refreshed, and you're ready to answer some quick fire questions from some of our listeners.
Yeah, let's do it. And I haven't looked at these, by the way. I know producer Jimmy's put some notes, but I've been busy. So I goodness knows what you're about to ask me, but I'll have a go.
Yeah, because Vegas is always one that I think people have a lot of questions about. Obviously, last year, there were so many questions because we didn't know what to expect. And everyone was quite, didn't think that it was going to be a very good race. Everyone was quite critical of it, and it turned out to be pretty bloody good. So I think let's get into it. So, quick fire questions, starting with Hannah. And her question is something that was a huge talking point last year. She says, what are they doing about the manhole covers during the race this year? Because obviously there were massive delays to free practice last year, weren't there? Because of those manhole covers. So, have they sorted it?
Well, we will only know if they've sorted it when the cars go out for practice. This has been an issue that's been slightly overblown because it was Vegas, because we've seen this happen on street races before, but because it was F1's showpiece event last year and it obviously happened and it created a delay which was far from ideal, it's been like, oh, well, it was a shambles. It's like, yeah, but we've seen this at other races, so it's not quite as apocalyptic as it's been made out to be, because you can put all the concrete filling over the top in the world. These cars with their aerodynamic base could run upside down if you had a long enough piece of tunnel. Like they create so much downforce that they could run upside down. So sometimes the only way to stress test this is running it, and when they did run it, it didn't work, and they thought they put in all the procedures. What I would say is they fixed that for practice last year, and we didn't see an issue for the remainder of the weekend. So I wouldn't expect drain covers to be an issue this weekend. Famous last words. If practice and qualifying are constantly interrupted because of drain covers, I'll look very silly when we do our post-race podcast on Sunday. But whatever they did last year, basically strengthening sticking them down with all manner of ways they do that. You'd have to work in construction to know the exact details. I certainly don't. But it worked for the rest of last year, so I wouldn't expect it to be a problem.
You'd think they've worked it out now, wouldn't you? You'd think they, got it sorted.
The rest of the weekend last year ran without a hitch, so yes, exactly, Betty.
Ellie has asked, what are your thoughts on how the Vegas Grand Prix has gained a reputation as being a bit more about the spectacle rather than the racing? Does it feel like that out there?
Yeah, in a way, it is more about the spectacle. But it isn't more about the spectacle, because last year the race was fantastic. And this is something that comes up a lot when we're talking about Monaco, which is purely more about the spectacle, because as we discussed the other week on the podcast when we were discussing it being renewed, sometimes it's not the most enthralling race. Granted, it's a very different test of the drivers, as we discussed in the last podcast, in terms of their skill set in a different way. But this is hugely about the spectacle. But what they've done that I think is brilliant is they've created a track where you can overtake, where you can get a good race. Because last year, the race was fantastic. There's 24 races in a Formula One season. And what Formula One's got to do to ensure that its popularity stays as high as it is at the moment is do different stuff. There's the potential for 24 races on purpose-built circuits like Silverstone could be quite boring. And I love the fact, I couldn't believe it yesterday walking down the strip. It's like, on my left, Planet Hollywood, all the world's famous casinos and hotels. On the right, oh my God, it's the circuit. It's like, I couldn't believe that they'd done that. It's like, there's the F1 track. Now, for the people watching at home, if it was a dull race, there'd be an issue. But last year, it was fantastic. So I don't think it is more about the spectacle than the race. I think it's 50-50 because they've done a brilliant job with the racing circuit. And even if this track the race isn't spectacular on Sunday, any track in the world can sometimes throw up a dull race. So no, I think they've done a really good job of the circuit, and therefore I don't think it's purely about the spectacle.
I also guess things like, the cool-down car that we saw last season with, Max, Charles and Checo in that cool-down car. It's things like that are just different, that I guess people get talking about, and it creates loads of memes and everyone's talking about it on social media, and it's after the race, so it sort of adds a little bit of something different.
And also, don't forget, there are people here in Vegas away from F1, and something that has helped grown F1's popularity in the States is the races like Miami, because Miami's a destination in itself. So when people happen to be in Miami and saw F1 come to town, it's like, oh, what's this? We'll check it out. This looks cool. F1 going to places where it's already, the place is already a thing, can help grow its fan base as well. And it needs to do that to keep thriving into the future. So I think what they've done is amazing. I'd be critical if the track was like, well, you're never going to overtake there. But it isn't. The track's great. The track really does seem like a good idea. And that was problems with the Vegas Grand Prix in the 80s that they had around Caesar's Palace. it was a rubbish track, whereas they've learned from that previously. So no, I don't think it's purely about the spectacle, because last year it threw up a great race. Let's see what it does this year.
Okay, next one. Jamie sent this in. They said, I know it's a night race, but how cold is it out there? And will this affect the grip and conditions for the teams and the drivers? Good question, because I've been wondering about the temperature.
Really, really, really good question. The time now is 11:20 in the morning when we're recording this podcast. It's 11 degrees outside, so it's not overly cold. The temperature, 11 degrees Celsius for our American friends. You'll have to do your own conversions because I don't get Celsius to Fahrenheit. In the evening, the temperature plummets. And I went out last night and it was cold. And it was like 4 or 5 degrees. But it felt cooler. It felt colder. It felt icy. And I know you've got snow back in the UK. So the simple answer to that is yes, Jamie, it does affect grip. And that's why, when I talked earlier about Monaco being a special test of the driver's skill because of the closeness of the walls and that sort of thing, Vegas is another one. Another thing that adds to the fact it is a test of the world's best drivers, not just a spectacle, because this is probably the coldest race of the year. And operating these cars in icy temperatures is a real test. And we saw last year Lando Norris spin off. Part of that reason was because the track was so cold. So generating the grip in these cars when we're potentially racing in temperatures that are somewhere between 3 and 9 degrees is a huge test for the drivers and will be a huge thing to watch out for on Sunday.
Good answer. Graham from Canada has asked something that could probably apply to other races as well, but is an interesting one, so we've added it in. He says...
We'll allow it.
We'll allow it. Thanks, Graham. He says other sports have blackout zones on TV coverage in the local area around matches or events. For example, you can't watch NHL games in bars right next to the stadiums. Is this the same for Formula One, or could I avoid the crazy grandstand prices by watching the race at a pub or a bar or somewhere close to the track while it's happening live to still be around for the weekend and experience some of the vibe and the after parties, etc.?
So this has been a little bit of a controversial one on social media, because of there's been pictures of people being like, oh, well, they've put up fencing so you can't see the track. And people have said that that's outrageous, like around the Vegas Strip. People love a social media outrage. That's not outrageous. You have to do that.
I saw on TikTok it's like actual boarding now, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
last year it was like that fencing.
There's 2 reasons you have to do this. And there's 2 parts to Graham's question. So let's talk about the fencing and the boarding and stuff. This event needs to make money. You can't come and put on an event like this. And you do, unfortunately, need to charge people to sit in the grandstands and see the cars. F1 makes its money by charging people to see the cars. That's unfortunately where we are. In the same way that back in the day in places like Silverstone, you used to be able to climb on top of hills. Zandvoort's a great example of this, because Zandvoort's quite hilly. You used to be able to climb on top of hills around the beaches in Zandvoort and watch the cars. You can't do that anymore because you need to pay your money to see the cars. That's unfortunately business. That's how it works. However, Graham's question, there's no TV blackout here as far as I'm aware. I'll correct this on the podcast on Sunday, but as far as I can see, this race will be still shown on F1 TV in the USA, on ESPN in the USA, as it ever would be. And something that I would encourage people to do in any Grand Prix. Austin is a really good example of this, is if you can't afford tickets, it is fun, just exactly as Graham says, to just be out here and soak up the vibes. There's great big murals of Ayrton Senna on the Vegas Strip, on one of the big screens that I saw last night. There's all the merch you can buy in all the hotel shops. This hotel's got merch downstairs in the shops.
Oh, I bet you love that.
Not at these prices, I don't, Betty. Thank you very much. But yeah, so no, you can absolutely soak up the vibe of F1 being here without having a ticket. Unfortunately, don't think I'm going to be able to get a view of the cars, and that is the same on any of the 24 Grand Prix. If you want to see racing cars, the sad reality is you have to pay the money to do it, and that's the economics of any sporting event as well. It's the same in football and soccer.
We've also had some recommendations for you sent in from Kev Dog, woof woof, who lives in Vegas.
Oh, okay. Betty can't keep a straight face with Kev Dog, woof woof. Now, is Kev Dog's name Kev Dog woof woof, or did you added in the woof woof, did you?
I added woof woof, I just couldn't help it.
Betty's made herself laugh.
Oh, God.
I'm loving how much this has made you laugh.
Anyway, I'm just imagining, like, a middle-aged man being like, my name's Kev Dog, woof woof. Anyway,
Yeah, sure.
the most Vegas name that I think there ever is. He says, "Hey Christian, that's Vegas native here. Let me give one recommendation that you won't regret. Get off the strip for at least one meal at Lindo Michelcan. Michelcan? It's
Lindo Mejojan.
exactly. I'll send you it. It's a Mexican place on Desert Inn Drive, and if you have 3 hours to kill, take a drive through Red Rock Canyon."
Well, I don't have a car, unfortunately, so I won't be taking the drive as much as I'd love to. Lindo. Oh, hang on. It comes up on Google. See locations.
Ah,
There's 2 of them apparently, and one's 2 miles away. I'll try.
yeah, do it.
I'll try. I can't promise it, Kev Dog Woof Woof, but it's 2. There's one 2 miles away, and there's one 3.5 miles away from where I am, and I do like Mexican food. So, all right, I'll do my very best.
I love Mexican food, and the Americans do it very well, don't they?
They do it very well. Again, another Austin tip for you. The Mexican food in Austin is fantastic.
He also says that off the strip, Vegas is just like any other town, just with more nudity. Have you seen any nudity, Christian?
Other than the aforementioned dancers at the start of the show, who the big bunny ears was probably the most sizable part of the outfit, no, I've not seen much nudity. Also, it's too cold. I've saw more nudity in Miami because beaches.
Yeah, there we go. Anyway, should we talk about the actual race itself and stop talking about nudity in Vegas?
Yes, I enjoyed Vegas Q&A. That was fun.
Yeah, it was good. Well done. I loved it. Right, so it's a Saturday night race. Starts at 10 p.m. Vegas time, which must be so cool to watch because we don't often see that. It means that it's starting at 6 a.m. on Sunday, UK time. And of course, this is going to be a massive weekend of the season because mathematically, Max Verstappen could be crowned world champion. It's obviously going to be very difficult for Lando Norris to turn it around because he's got a 62-point gap and there's only 3 races left. So the big question for you, Christian, is will Max Verstappen clinch it this weekend?
Probably. Yeah. Maybe. Might be Qatar next weekend.
It's going to happen, though, in the next 2.
Yeah, that's it. It would be. Listen, if you're going, I was thinking this walking down the strip actually last night. If you're going to win an F1 World Championship,
Oh, do it in Vegas.
do it in Vegas. Yeah, but Lando will obviously want to eke it out as long as possible. I was really blunt on the Brazilian Grand Prix debrief. I'm sure as can be, it would be Max's. The only thing that's even going to give Lando the tiniest hint of thinking he could do it is if Max has an engine blowout and doesn't finish the race and Lando wins. Even then, I still think Max wouldn't be too worried. So it might be Qatar. Highly doubt it'll go to Abu Dhabi. I think it's when F1 crowns its new champion rather than if. It'll be interesting to see if Max is less grumpy about it this year because Max was, generally speaking, really grumpy about the Vegas Grand Prix all weekend last year, right up until he won, and then he sort of got into it and finally thought, all right.
Then he loved it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not a gambler, right? I'm not. It had never been in terms of tourist places and parts of America I want to visit. Vegas hadn't been up at the top of the list for me. But you're here, you might as well enjoy it. It's Las Vegas. You might as well have a look round. So come on, Max, just enjoy it while you're here. And if you win the title here, probably a good place to do it.
So if Lando doesn't score points or if Max finishes ahead of him, then it's over this weekend. I mean, if you were a betting man, as most people are in Las Vegas, you'd put all your money on Max Verstappen, wouldn't you? Especially after that display in Brazil. It sort of feels like he wants to get it wrapped up now. He's sort of over this season.
Yeah, and I've said this a few times. We are in such track-specific territory in terms of the pace of the cars. We're recording this podcast, as I said, on the Tuesday, and you don't normally start to get the hints of the paddock. I haven't been in the paddock yet, so the sort of rumours of who's going to be quick this weekend and who's not until later down the weekend. But whose car works better in low grip will probably be so crucial this weekend because, as I was saying earlier in the podcast, it's so cold and there's so little in it particularly between Red Bull, Ferrari and McLaren, that whichever one of those cars nails their setup in Friday practice and thinks, oh, hang on a minute, we found a good way to run in the cold here, will probably be in with the best chance. So it's really nice. We're always at the moment going into these weekends going, I don't really know of the top three who's going to win. Mercedes have been a little bit off the pace. I haven't heard anything to suggest that they're going to be able to turn it around and fight for wins this weekend. Stranger things have happened though. So at the very least, I think it'll be a really entertaining Grand Prix. And but as you said, Betty, if you were going to force me to bet, Red Bull looked quicker than McLaren last time, or rather Red Bull in the hands of Max did. So I'd be surprised if Max didn't finish ahead of Lando, put it that way.
However, the Constructors is still really, really exciting, isn't it? Because that is still so close. So it could go either way with McLaren, Red Bull and Ferrari. And also you sort of think whoever comes out, it's all to do with momentum, isn't it? With 3 races left, that's what you want. You want that momentum going into the final 2.
I think it is momentum. You're absolutely right. It's also consistency. If you're one of those 2 teams fighting for I don't think Red Bull are in it because I think they're fighting one-handed. Because Checo's been nowhere near, and even though Checo's good on street circuits, and this is a street circuit, I still don't see Checo being right up there this weekend. So you're hoping that if you're Ferrari or you're McLaren, you've got both drivers on form. That's where it's going to be crucial in the last 3 races of the season, that Oscar Piastri will need to be as on it as Lando, Sainz as on it as Leclerc. I think it's going to be really crucial to see which of these teams is looking like they've got 2 drivers right up there and right on it, because a 1-2 or a double podium finish could be crucial at this stage of the season for any of those teams fighting for the championship.
I'm really excited to see what McLaren are going to be like, see what Lando and Oscar are going to turn up with, what their mentality is going to be like, how they're going to perform, because, you know, obviously they can still win the Constructors, which, like we said in the Brazil Grand Prix debrief, that would be massive for McLaren, but it does feel like perhaps the pressure's got to them slightly, so it will be interesting to see how they react now in this situation.
In my view, McLaren didn't realise they were in a fight for the Drivers' Championship until it was too late. I think in hindsight, right from the Miami Grand Prix, they should have been thinking, this is a Drivers' Championship scrap here. Because I expect McLaren to be in the 2025 title fight for the drivers, as well as securing the Constructors. I actually think the way they need to be framing it in their own minds is the Drivers' Championship fight for 2025 starts now. It'll give them such confidence over the winter to be like, look, you know, yes, we lost the title, but we were really, really good in Abu Dhabi, Qatar and Vegas. We've had a solid pre-season. We are going out from Australian Grand Prix. We're in this title fight. And for me, whenever a sports team or sporting athlete has been knocked back, your recovery starts immediately afterwards. So for me, for McLaren, it's like, right, it's go time now. We're going to go and prove from this weekend that effectively 2025 starts here for us, and we're going to take it to Max straight away and just lay down that marker for 2025 straight away. I know that sounds silly when we're not even finished 2024 yet, but I think that mentality, that momentum makes such a difference in sport.
It's just building blocks for confidence as well, isn't it? You need those wins in sport in order to feel more confident, and ultimately
100%.
It's that confidence which gets you over the line when things get really tense.
Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to with the Vegas Grand Prix? Is there anything in particular that stands out for you?
I was just looking forward to seeing Vegas because, as I said, as someone that's never been here, and when we got a bus from the airport to Vegas, and I have to admit, that feeling of when the bus drove onto the strip, of like seeing the lights, it was like, oh wow. And as even for someone like me who has never, like a lot of my friends love casinos, so they're like, I want to go to Vegas. I'm not a gambler, so I've never been like, I need to be in Vegas. But even for someone like me, that moment of seeing it all, it's like bigger than you can comprehend. Your eyes have never quite seen something like it. So I was looking forward to that moment, and that really lived up to expectations. It was like, oh wow, this is cool. So the next thing I'm then looking to see is sort of what I alluded to at the start. And that's, believe it or not, when you're working these events, I quite often go a full weekend without seeing a car, because quite often where I am working, you can't get to a grandstand. So again, this sounds silly, me saying, I hope I get to see a Formula One car, but I can't take that for granted that I will.
Yeah.
You're on the strip last night and you look at it and you're like, this is amazing. And then you're like, oh my God, there's an F1 track there. That's silly. So I just really, really hope I get to see that. And I'm just intrigued to see what the paddock's like, because the paddock just looked so silly last year with a wedding chapel and that sort of thing.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm just intrigued to experience it and soak it up and see it.
The one thing that I was surprised you didn't say when I asked you what are you looking forward to is I really thought you were going to talk about Alpine's bright pink car, because you've been banging on for so long about the fact that you love seeing pink cars in Formula One. You want more pink. Alpine are bright pink for the last 3 races, Christian.
Yeah, talk to me when they do it all season. I don't want a pink special livery. I don't want a yellow special livery. I want more colour in F1, and I want F1 to do something about this whole carbon malarkey for the new season. I want next year. I want more liveries. I want better liveries, please. And I genuinely, I'm sort of actually making a serious point as well, because I think the liveries do capture people's imagination and capture young fans' imagination. I don't want them all to be black. And then we haven't got a yellow car and we haven't got a pink car. I just want more bright colours, full stop. So yes, I'll be pleased to see that this weekend. Well done, Alpine. But next year, all teams, more colour, please. Big, brighter cars to capture them. One of the first ever episodes of this podcast, I asked Oscar Piastri, what was it that captured your Formula One imagination? He said seeing a white car with a yellow, bright, luminous yellow Go Faster stripe in 2009, which is the Brawn Grand Prix car that Jensen won in. These things matter. These things stick in people's minds, and no one's like, oh, I saw a black carbon thing with a bit of Red Bull blue on it. So I just want more colour, full stop.
Well, I am absolutely buzzing for Vegas Grand Prix. I will be waking up, setting my alarm nice and early and watching it.
Will you?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm not doing anything better with my life, so may as well.
Right, fine. Good, might as well.
But you will have an absolutely cracking time, and we'll of course do a debrief afterwards, and I believe Will Buxton is going to be joining you in Vegas as well, we hope, so that will be very exciting.
That's the plan. That's the plan, yeah. I mean, I don't know how the post-race will play out, because it will be, you'll have been to bed and woken up, but when me and Will are talking to you, we won't have been to bed. So the plan is we meet back at this hotel, because I think Will's not here yet, but when he gets here, we'll be staying here. So we're gonna try and get Will, and I'll certainly talk. Yeah, goodness knows where we'll be, or what state we'll be in, or how sleep deprived we'll be by then. You're speaking to me now, pre-Race Vegas podcast, feeling genuinely very refreshed, having successfully shifted my body clock. And there's a good chance that by the time we get to the post-race podcast, you'll just see broken Christian Hugill crying and ready to come back to the UK.
I can't wait to watch you and Will Buxton crying in a casino. That'll be great. That'll be great entertainment. Before we do go, though, Christian and I have been catching up with Ella Lloyd, who will be driving for McLaren in the Formula One Academy next season. That's, of course, the all-female series. Just announced its calendar for 2025, made up of 7 races, all taking place on Formula One weekends, ending in Vegas this time next year. So it's all very exciting. It's also been announced that the winner of this year's series will be getting a fully funded seat in GB3 next year. So it's great to see that the series is giving its drivers a chance to sort of step up into those other areas of motorsport. So we thought it was a brilliant time to hear from one of the drivers taking part in next season. So here is our chat with Ella Lloyd. Welcome to the Fast and the Curious, Ella, or should I say Borada? That's the only Welsh I know. I am half Welsh, but I am a fake Welsh person, really, and I can't speak any Welsh, so Borada.
Thank you.
I forget you're Welsh, Betty.
Half Welsh, and I support Wales through and through.
I know,
so
yeah.
Buzzing to have Ella on the podcast, because she's like a true Welsh woman, but yeah, I can't speak a word of it, which is actually so disappointing. Can you teach me something, Ella?
Oh, I don't know. What do you want to know?
What's car?
Like car is more than one car, but like car is like car.
So you basically put on a stereotypical Welsh accent and say the word car.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Ella, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. It's so great to speak to you. Why don't we start with sort of your sporting pedigree, I guess, because we've been doing our research on you. You've grown up doing all sorts of different sports. You've competed in skiing, show jumping. You won a gold medal in the 2019 Welsh Skiing Championship, which blows my mind because I didn't even know there was a Welsh Skiing Championship. But how incredible is that? And now you're obviously driving cars for a living. So is there a sport that you can't do?
I don't know. Is there?
Wow.
Yeah, so I started skiing and show jumping. I won in skiing in 2019, and I won the Bronze League in 2019 as well, show jumping.
Ella, at school, I was incredibly untalented, and that's something I've kept into adult life. One of my particular areas of a lack of talent was with sports, which I have the hand-eye coordination of a drunk three-legged giraffe, and I was so jealous of those people at school who could. In PE or at sports day, just seemed like they could do anything. It's like, oh yeah, of course they're good at cricket, of course they're good at football. Was that you with all these different sports? Were you that sort of person that I'd have just looked at and been so jealous of, thinking, why can they do everything and I can't throw a ball in a straight line?
Yeah, probably.
Why racing then? Why have you turned your hand to racing?
Well, my dad did like a little bit of rallying before, so did my brother. So I've always been around motorsports, and I think as soon as I jumped in the car, I kind of thought, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. Obviously the adrenaline and everything I had from driving, I think, it was pretty amazing feeling. So yeah, since starting, I've just carried on and enjoyed it even more, going through the ladders and obviously driving different cars, and just really enjoyed it.
And for those that don't know, Ella, we often talk about, sports people having sport in their blood, but your dad did quite a bit, didn't he? Just give us a bit of a run through of what your dad did.
Yeah, so he's done a bit of rallying before, and he also skied for the Paralympics in Korea quite a few years ago now. So yeah, sports always been in my family. So yeah.
You say that with the ultimate chill, I'm not going to give Dad too much credit. Yeah, he did a bit of skiing, the Paralympics.
Yeah.
That's quite good, isn't it? Really, it's not a bad record.
It's not too bad.
It's incredible.
I'm faster than him now, so he better give up.
I like that. For those that don't know, your dad was involved in an accident, wasn't he, when he was driving, and then he obviously turned to become a Paralympic skier, which is such an incredible story on its own. How much inspiration can you take from him and his journey and his resilience as well, I guess?
Yeah, so he actually had a rally car crash quite a few years ago now, and that's how he obviously got in the position of going to the Paralympics then, and obviously starting skiing and ski racing was after he had his incident. Yeah, they basically told him that he wouldn't ski again or anything, so he went and did it basically, and yeah.
When people, especially family members, Ella, are involved in crashes in motorsports, there's always a danger that it can put you off. Did your dad sort of try and warn you off it, or did it sort of affect your drive into it at all?
Well, he gave me the opportunity really to go and drive, and yeah, he supported me ever since. It's not really affected me. Obviously, when he's watching on the sidelines, he's obviously a bit worried because he knows what can happen, but yeah, it's part of the sport, and yeah, just got to get on with it.
How proud is he of you now with what you're doing? Obviously, sort of joining the McLaren Driver Academy, he must be so proud of you.
Yeah, he is proud. Obviously, I never thought, anyone thought that I would get in this position, obviously so early on, only being in my third season. So yeah, everyone in my whole family is really proud. Well,
and Betty says about how proud your family must be of you, with good reason as well. Now, you mentioned a little bit of it earlier, but it's worth just running through what you've achieved so far, and that is a big old list. He spent 2022 in the Ginetta Junior Championships, the vice champion of the Ginetta GT Championship in 2023. 2024 was exciting, going into the Formula Winter Series, now competing in British F4, where there's been multiple points finishes and podiums. And then last month it was announced you joined the McLaren Driver Academy and will be representing them in the 2025 F1 Academy Series. And you were part of Formula E's Women Test Sessions. An absolutely incredible couple of years. When it's listed like that in front of you, Ella, does it seem like it's just flown? Have there been any particular highlights along the way?
Yeah, I think, listing it like that, I didn't realise how much achievements I've had in the Formula Winter Series, achieving multiple first female trophies against, obviously, some of the females that are currently in F1 Academy. Was pretty, decent for my first few race weekends in a single seater. And then I also had the opportunity to race in the F1 Academy in Singapore, which was an amazing opportunity. To see first weekend watching an F1 race, let alone competing on the same weekend.
You mentioned the F1 Academy there. You raced in Singapore, didn't you, as a wild card? Am I right in thinking that? And you scored points in both races.
Yeah.
What was that experience like, though? You must have been so nervous, I'm assuming.
I wouldn't say nervous. I was excited. I think good. First time on a street circuit, obviously, and on an F1 weekend. I've never even been to an F1 weekend. So to be raced on my first one felt pretty amazing. But yeah, it was an amazing experience.
And you'll be taking over from Bianca Bustamante.
Yeah.
And I'm intrigued by this. Now, Bianca will have done the maximum 2 seasons you're allowed to do in F1 Academy. Is there a formal sort of handing over of the baton ceremony? Will there be like a bit of a presentation, or will she pass a steering wheel over to you? I'd quite with some fireworks, some orange papaya fireworks, be quite camp. I'd really enjoy it. What do we think? Is there anything like that planned? And if so, how do we sort that out?
I don't think I'm like taking over, really. We did the Formula E test obviously together, which was really good to have another female there as well in the same team. And yeah, got along really well. And yeah, she'll be stepping up to a bigger challenge, and I'll be taking on this challenge.
So what happens between now and your, next test session, the first race of next season? What's your journey into building up to being a driver on the grid next year?
Yeah, and so obviously some testing and obviously just learning the tracks. I've never been to any of them except Singapore. So just learning the tracks, preparing obviously for the heat as well, and just, making the most of the facilities at McLaren and at Rodin as well to be the best driver I can for the start of the season.
Has anything really shocked you, or has anything happened that you just didn't really expect from sort of the recent experiences you've had?
Maybe one thing that shocked me is how many people are behind the McLaren F1 team. Obviously being at the MTC and looking around and going to the offices and different things is surprising how many people are behind the whole organisation and, the family.
Yeah, it's big, isn't it? Have you seen the pond?
Yeah, it's pretty big.
Ella, do you like fish?
I like fish.
Yeah.
To eat or just to look at?
We were interviewing Oscar Piastri about that very pond on this podcast, and Betty asked him the favourite question that's ever been asked on the podcast with similar levels of context to that. Do you like fish? Oscar said he did. Ella, are you a fan of fish?
Yeah, no, I don't mind looking at them. They're all right, I suppose.
Well, Ella, thank you very much for joining us on your first ever The Fast and the Curious. Ella, obviously, we're delighted to see you get this opportunity. It's going to be fascinating following your progress next year. And thank you for putting up with our slightly unusual style of podcasting where we talk about fish and handing over batons and that sort of thing. Thank you for putting up with us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ella. Good luck with it all.
Thank you.
Oh, that was nice to hear from Ella, wasn't it? And confirmation that if you do like fish, you'd be very welcome to drive for McLaren. I like how you tried to throw me under the bus there, Christian.
No, it's more celebrate you, because genuinely it's what I love about you, the fact that you can I never know as your friend when I'm texting you on WhatsApp or when I'm recording a podcast with you, I never know what's going to come out of your mouth next, which is a fantastic thing. And that's a throwback to Silverstone when you just asked, do you like fish, Oscar? Which, even though we were talking about the pond at the McLaren, I just didn't expect. But no, Betty, it's genuinely celebrating you. It's why I love you.
Oscar Piastri will remember that interview for the rest of his life, I reckon.
Oscar always when we interview him, just looks at us like, who on earth are these mad people? But I'm told genuinely enjoys speaking to us. So
I don't know. I think because the poor lad, we got to him like in one of his first media interviews he'd ever done in Formula One, and so we just sort of cornered it. It's all he's ever known in Formula One. But I think in like 5 years' time, when he's a sort of world champion and stuff, he'll be like, oh my God, these people.
These idiots.
Anyway, that is it for this episode. Christian, what's your plan for today?
My immediate plan for today, unfortunately, I'd love to say I'm going to go out, I'm going to have fun, I'm going to go to a club, I'm actually going to go to the gym, and I've got a load of work to do.
I mean, your day sounds almost as boring as my evening's going to be. I've got washing to put away.
Yeah, I haven't got washing to put away yet, but no, I'm gonna go to the gym. I've got to do some work, and then this evening, hopefully, I'll see a bit of Vegas team when I've done my work, and then everything happens at night anyway. So I'm sort of not too fussed to be sat here working the day. I'll go and see something at night. Go and try and find some food. I mean, even little tasks in Vegas are mad. Like going out and getting a coffee feels like, where on earth am I going to do this? So
I like that.
Yes, like Even going out for dinner tonight will feel like an adventure. Be like, right, food.
Anyway, we'll debrief it all with you after the Vegas Grand Prix. I can't wait to hear about everything. I can't wait to hear what you see and hopefully speak to you from inside a casino, because that would be pretty cool. Hopefully Will Buxton will be there as well. So as always, send your thoughts, feelings, questions over the weekend to @FastCuriousPod all over social. We're on Insta, we're on TikTok, we're on X. We are everywhere. So get in touch with us. Any questions, Hugo will answer them, I hope. Anyway, thank you, Christian.
For me, Christian Hugill in Paris, for now, good evening.